Mr. Martin, welcome to Mango Magic. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good morning.
Good afternoon for me, but
There you
good
go.
morning for you. Martin, normally we start with a very simple question. What have you done with AI, you or your team, in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, so we're a SaaS company. We're a SaaS that uses our own software. So the change we've made in the organization is we now use AI and AI suites of tools to develop our own software. And that is the fundamental change that we started 4 years ago and it accelerated here in 2026 as the suite of tools became more and more important and effective. And so that's really the shift that we're making. We're not using AI to decision, we're using AI to develop applications, and those applications then deterministically manage our processes.
Interesting. And which is the model that you like the most, or your company
Yeah,
uses?
we've chosen to use the Claude suite of tools. So we use Anthropic heavily. We've created a set of scripts and capabilities inside that Claude suite that allow for subject matter experts to get in there and effectively try to develop prototypes and specifications. And the goal is to have them be able to, without coding a line, have a clean cut prototype in about 10 minutes.
That's amazing. Um, so normally what I'm seeing is that, like, in as a company as a whole, you're building with cloud. You have like an enterprise subscription.
Mhm.
And have you played around with the other models, or you went with Anthropic for
Yeah.
some reason? Like,
No, we did. We fiddled with a lot of different tools. The Anthropic structure, I think all of us are dealing with it right now, the 150 person limit. But we're under that. We're able to cycle through with different subject matter experts on the tool over
okay,
time, and when they need it, they get a license, step in there, do their prototyping, and there's only so much software you can write. So a subject matter expert doesn't need that suite and that capability, that powerful set of tools at all times. So the
correct.
IT team, the application development team, which isn't huge, they have it full time, but kind of from a user perspective, it's always then that owner of the business process, the one that understands the client needs, the one that
Mm,
understands the data model that we're using and that we've developed over time. And those people can step in there and really functionally develop prototypes on that suite of tools. And we've tried other ones, and we just found that that seems to be the best for cost. When we run LLMs on our exception management processes, and we alternate through a variety of models at that point in time. But
okay.
the tool set we've kind of fixated on Anthropic. Doesn't mean won't change in a year or two, but right now it seems to be the most effective for us as an application development shop.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, it's a lot of companies are choosing this way, like just locking down with one provider, which makes sense in a lot of sense. But then I feel like what you just said, right? In 6 months, maybe GPT comes up with an incredible model. Actually, apparently today or tomorrow, they're coming up with their new 5.6 Sol, Luna, and Terra models, and apparently they're amazing. So, yeah, I think you just need to be flexible um, with
Yeah.
these kind of things. But yeah, makes sense.
The,
But
the hard
yeah,
part, the hard, sorry to interrupt. The hard part is really around teaching people how to use the tool suite, right? Because
mm,
Claude is, the way that the different components of Claude and, designer and code and all those other things work together. There's a little bit of a learning curve. And so we've decided to standardize on one in terms of that tool set. That doesn't mean the underlying model has to be Anthropic's model.
got it. And talking about that, like, what's the human side of this in cast? Like, how are you taking your team through this whole new innovation, new tech? I mean, it makes it's a little bit weird to talk about new because we're all just embedded in them, but it's like a 5 year technology, right? Like that it's super used. So
Yeah.
how are you implementing this in your company?
Yeah. So the key is that roles and responsibilities of subject matter experts, so typically supervisors, managers, super users on the client side are evolving and
Hmm.
understanding the client need rather than the historic process
Okay.
is what's needed to lead individual activity. So in the past, it was always so dependent on the software we had built, right? We've spent 40 years building software to process, to get to the outcome, which is a processed invoice and a paid invoice to the client vendor. Uh,
Hmm.
with these tool sets, all of a sudden, what's really more important is exactly what does the client need, right? And how does the client need fit? I will always have to backfit it into my data model, but I don't have to backfit it into my process. I can use new applications to build different process steps uh, as long as I have a services type architecture, right? Where I'm able to have an orchestration layer that runs through the process and it calls up different services along the way. We joke
Hmm.
about, application development has changed. Well, when I was in college, which is a lifetime ago, it's build that big application. So think of building, the sidewalk with concrete, right? One big swath of concrete. And then when you wanted to change something, you had to jackhammer out a hole in the middle, refill it with something new, and then try to make it look like everything else. The big architecture change now is a services architecture where it looks like a brick walkway. And when a specific brick doesn't meet the client needs anymore, you pull that one brick out, take your new brick, drop it in there, put a little grout in there, clean it up a little bit, and on you move. And
Mm.
that change is huge. And so it allows the subject matter experts, and what the Claude tools allow for is the subject matter expert to understand that brick in a hugely valuable, very detailed way, and then sit down in front of that tool with an IT expert that understands the data model, understands the APIs, understands how that is going to fit inside that space, and
Mm.
effectively develop a prototype for that brick. If the two of them work together, maybe in 2 days. And then you have to do all the testing, right? The constraint no longer becomes writing software. The constraint becomes
Correct.
how can you test this stuff? The change is those managers and supervisors that have been here 20 years and understand the customer needs have to shift
Mm.
from I'm going to manage 20 people who just do this one step to I'm going to go and design a prototype with my who in the past the IT might have been in a different silo, somebody they didn't work with on a day-to-day basis. And so that change, that cultural change is really the kind of the thing that I worry about the most, right? So the best signal for me on adoption rate is whether the people are comfortable being uncomfortable. Are they
Mm.
comfortable sitting down in a tool set that they understand? We've trained them how to use that tool set with people they normally don't work with, designing a
Interesting.
solution that they normally would have just said, hey, here are my business requirements, right? And they would have
Mm.
given it to an analyst that would have created a business requirements doc, who would have handed it to an IT analyst who would have created a technical requirements doc, who would have handed it to somebody who's going to code. And by the time they code through that and test it and hand it back to the user, it's like what, 60% right at best?
Interesting.
And then you fiddle with it, you cycle on it, and you might get to 80% right. But architectural decisions you made 3 months ago limit your ability to actually finish the tool set exactly the way you want it. And so you put it into production, it meets half your 80% of your needs, but you can't throw it away because it's taken you 6 months to get there. This
Mm.
change is getting the business users to be part of that cycle real time. And in 2 weeks, all of a sudden, you have a suite of code that you can test that everybody agrees meets like 95% of your needs.
Mm.
And culturally, that's really, really hard, right? When you see a subject matter expert who's never touched an application development suite, a coding tool, leading that spec with the engineer there supporting them, that is a complete change in roles and responsibilities. And it's a culturally very, very difficult to do. We ran a number of hackathons. The feedback from all those hackathons came out that development teams that have subject matter experts, IT people, project management staff, all
Interesting.
together working in real time on a screen together become very, very efficient because you don't miss the key
Anything.
requirements in that
Mm.
cycle. That's culturally a huge change, and it's difficult to get people who might have done the same thing for 20 years to mentally make that change. And
Yeah.
and the challenge we face is if they're not willing to, they're going to find their responsibilities are going to slowly dwindle away. as somebody else takes the responsibilities for those actions and develops a better mousetrap, a better tool to deliver that to the client. Because again, all that matters is that the client gets what they need.
Absolutely. So you're talking about the complete change in the dynamics of how the teams are working before and now. It's like a complete different new team members, different ways of thinking about the product, different ways about thinking your day to day. It's like you're interconnecting every single team with each other. And now
Yeah.
it's like a builder team, which has more like an holistic, right? It's understanding every
Yeah.
single part of the product. I really like that. Very, very interesting.
It was
Very
always
smart.
siloed, right? And you'd throw work
Yeah.
product from silo to silo.
Yeah,
That
makes
has to
sense.
break down. You have to get rid of those to utilize these tools effectively. And it's not easy for people who have spent their life either developing software and they say, but
Yeah.
I can do it better, or people who have done running applications, running the users on an application and have never really thought deeply about how that application got built.
Mm.
And those people have to sit together and actually become teammates. And that's not trivial.
Interesting. You mentioned hackathons, and are there any other like cultural features that you're developing to build them together, to bring them together?
Yeah, I mean, organizationally, we've had to change the org charts.
Okay.
We've flattened the organization, so every manager has a broader span. That helps get rid of silos. And
Mm,
then we've done things like the operations team in facilities invoices and the operations team in freight invoices. Those teams are now communicating with each other. So even in separate business lines, we're taking similar functions and having them actually participate together in software development. So I'll have a subject
interesting.
matter expert from freight and a subject matter expert from facilities sit with an IT person and say, oh, well, but this is my need and this is my need. Oh, well, can I do something that meets both of those needs in an effective way? If I can, then I can actually push two business lines to use the same software. And that is the big win, because it basically says that things that are really different, there are significant differences in a freight invoice packet, right? It might be 10 pages long with a bill of lading, an invoice, and a way slip, and all sorts of other stuff, and a electric utility bill or a gas utility bill, right? Those are different. But the processes we run on are the same. So if I can
Got it.
utilize the software to functionalize the process, I
Mm,
can bring those teams together. And so, yeah, we've flattened the organization, forced cross silo collaboration on similar functions, and then the IT team, we've created a central function for these tool sets that does the training and consistency, and they're the ones that have built the Claude suite for us, right? 34 different functions, all the slash commands, immutable controls around data model and security and all those other pieces of the puzzle. And, IT owns that. And that tool set becomes then the subject matter expert's plaything. And
mm,
what's amazing is the ones that have jumped into owning the responsibility of the software development, they love it. They love it. And
makes a lot of
that's
sense.
culturally, for me, the win, right? Is when they can
Mm,
grow and become more than they were
absolutely.
before.
Yeah, that's the key.
Fascinating.
Absolutely. Martin, what keeps you up at night about AI?
Yeah, my biggest fear is actually that we don't use it as in a controlled way. So we are a 120-year-old company. We're a financial services firm, so we're highly regulated. We're managing, north of $90 billion of payments on an annual basis. So control, what we call in the process is an explain plan. I need to be able to show somebody where I got the invoice, how I processed
Mm,
it, which data elements I put into the data model, for what reason, how I use that to audit or validate that the data was correct, and then how I made the
mhm.
payment, and all the way down to the ACH notch number that says this is the payment that hit their bank account on this date. So I need to be able to explain that all the way through. So my concern is that we're using AI quickly with no controls to try to automate pieces of that process that don't give me an explain plan. And
Okay.
the challenge there is that LLMs are stochastic, right? They're not deterministic. They can come up with different answers for the same question.
Every single time. Yeah.
I can't do that. I process north of 5 million transactions a month or invoices a month. Each invoice could have multiple services on it. So it might be, north of 5 million individual events. And next month, I'm going to process 5 million similar ones. If it's the same invoice from the same vendor to the same client, I have to put the data in the same place. I have to round it in the same way. I have to articulate why it was selected the same way. I can't do that with an AI model. I can only do that with a deterministic application. So because that consistency is required, I use AI to develop deterministic applications. Those deterministic applications process in the same way. AI highlights the exceptions, explains to the human why the exception occurred, and then in some cases, it gives it a natural answer because it says that there's only one possible answer here. Go ahead and use that possible answer. Or in other cases, it says to the human, here are the 5 or 6 possible answers. You need to make a decision. I'm not going to make a decision for you. And I can't let the AI decision. I can make humans can decision, applications determine, and AI can highlight exceptions.
Interesting. So AI creates a framework for the build out, and then it's not deterministic because now can you explain that again? I mean,
yeah.
So you're using AI to create deterministic models.
Yes.
So it stands out what goes wrong, but it's not deterministic. AI points it out. That's okay. And you need humans. Okay.
Yeah. So if A, then X. Well, if it's not A, what do I do? Right.
Okay.
And so I can sit down and say, well, why did it not pick A? Right. And the LLM is really good, or the AI is really good at telling me, well, here's the reason that it didn't determine A. But I don't know what to do now. And so I send it to a human and say, well, here's the reason this didn't work. And I'll give a simple example, right? An account number might be numeric for a specific vendor. And the OCR reads it and says it's 123A5. Well, guess what? The OCR read the 4 as an A. Well, it fails because it says that's not numeric. There's an alpha. Now, that's one where it'll say, okay, make that a 4, right? Because that's the most likely answer.
Yeah.
But in some cases, it might just say, hey, human, go look at this picture and tell me why this is alpha. Well, it's a 4, not an A. Okay, correct it. Right. So that deterministic layer runs, and it's really good. Right. We've spent 40 years, 4 decades building this software. OCR is old, technology. It's well scripted. It knows what it's supposed to be doing. It's right a lot. So we can use those deterministic processes. We get the right information. We put it in our data model. We normalize it, feed it upstream to the client, and then use it to make the payment. And if that data model can't be populated, or it can't find that type of activity in the contract, right? So it'll take that activity, try to audit it against the contract and say, wait a second, you don't have a contract with parcel instead of truck, right? It'll say, hey, wait a second, this looks like a parcel invoice, but you don't have any parcel in your contract. What are you trying to accomplish? And it'll send it to a human and say, hey, I think this is a parcel. And the human might say, no, you got that wrong. It's actually not parcel. It's actually truck. Right. But the AI, what I can't do is let the AI say half the time, oh, yeah, this is truck. And the other half the time say, no, it's parcel, force it in. Right.
Got it.
So, and that's where the problem with stochastic AI models is they cannot give you the same answer every time.
And do you think this is something, that it's going to get better for LLMs? Or do you think that humans in the loop are going to be something that for the next 10 years, we're going to still need like these kind of interactions with humans? Or as the LLMs get so much better and so much smarter, do you think there's a path where the human in the loop is going to just disappear, or less and less involved?
It'll certainly become less and less involved, and we're seeing it already, right? We go back and retrain our models on a regular basis, and so we get more improvement every time as the AI does the annotations to create our machine learning models, right? So they're constantly getting better, and so the number of exceptions will continually go down. the better control framework you build, the more likely it is that there is only one potential answer once you've kind of worked your way through a process.
Mm.
The more you can allow the AI to say, oh, there's only one potential answer, use the answer. But there will always be that need. And let's be clear, certain exceptions are good exceptions. If an invoice shows up for a utility company and the remittance information on that invoice does not match the remittance information of the vendor that I have onboarded, I need to call that as an exception because it's probably a fraudulent invoice. It's probably been injected into the system by a fraudster, and they're just hoping that I actually pay what's on the document, right? Which, you go back to 2016 where Apple paid, what was it, $60 million to the individual in Romania for just submitting invoices because there was no control framework. Well, we're making payments. We reconcile everything to the penny. I have to have a control framework on every step of this process. So I cannot allow,
It's a feature.
or I'm not going to allow AI to become my control process.
Correct.
I just don't trust it enough. It is not deterministic. And humans can escalate, right? Humans can make errors. I'm not saying they don't make errors, but at least they have to document why the error was made. Whereas an AI will say, well, I think it's right. And, if you go back and compare, I'm an old AI person. I took AI in college, which is, decades ago. You can't, the old machine learning models had certainty levels, right? So I'm 90% certain that this is right because it was, the way the model was built. AI is 100% right every time. It doesn't know that there's a potential other answer or it hasn't given it to you unless you explicitly ask for it, right? What are the other potential answers? You've got to ask those questions. Otherwise, well, if it gives you 3 answers, who's going to make the decision of which answer is right? Because it thinks each one of them is right in its process, right? So that's where when you're paying money, at some point in time, somebody has to be responsible. Now, you can certainly outsource that to AI. It's not a choice we're going to make.
Not yet.
I would say it will be a very, very long time before I allow AI to decision on exceptions, whether or not I would pay this money or not.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Who's responsible? Actually, the credentials of the person using it, right? So if I'm the credentialed person on that agent, I'm still responsible.
You are responsible, right? Absolutely.
When the money goes out the door, nobody's going to blame the agent. They're going to blame me, my credentials. So
absolutely. Martin, I think we'll be here talking for hours. Thank you so much. Super interesting. I think we should do a part 2.
I would love to. I enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
Really enjoyed it. Before we wrap up, I want to hand it over to you. Where can we find you or your company, social media?
Yeah, so we're CAS Information Systems, casinfo.com. We are outsourced AP. We produce the outcome of payments, typically for large corporate entities, specifically around those recurring non-purchase ordered invoices, utility bills, your landscaper, your MRO, the toilet paper that gets delivered every 2 weeks, trash, all those things that have to do with facilities, and then contract transportation. So that those trucks that are delivering goods to your manufacturing site on a regular basis, that you want those contracts audited to make sure that you're being charged the right amount. That's what we do. It's casinfo.com. We've been around 120 years, processing invoices for 70. We really feel like it's a value add, especially when you have, if you have 100 sites, you probably have 500 invoices showing up every month, right? Who's validating that you're not paying fraud, right? That's what we do.
Excellent. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.